What's up guys, in this video we're rebuilding this Dana 300.
Let's get started.
Alright, so here's our transfer case rebuild kit, and here's the transfer case. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up real nice, because I don't want to be really working on it when it's all dirty and stuff. So, cut back to it, hopefully it'll be all nice and clean. Alright, so I got it clean. So, what we're going to do is we're going to yank off these nuts right here. You're going to need to use an impact for this. If you don't, you can use a breaker bar and just like restrain this side from spinning, but then that makes this one a little harder to do. But so yeah, I'm gonna yank these off, put them in separate bags because sometimes they're different on each side. Actually, I don't know for sure, but they might be different, so make sure you either like have a way to differentiate between them. So I'm gonna first thing, yank these off. Alright, so I apologize for how ghetto this is. There is a tool made for this, but I just have this like clamp, so we're just going to use this and see if it works, because you do need a puller. Alright, so this is like, it's not under that much pressure, so if you have any puller that, and you can just kind of make it like, you can rig it up to work, I'd recommend it, because this worked pretty well. Alright, next thing we're going to do is yank off this casing on the top, so we can get a viewing window into there. Not going to record it, just bolts. Easy money. Alright, so here we go. Ooh. That looks so complicated. I don't know. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm kind of nervous, but I think it'll be fine in the end. Don't be afraid to kind of pound on this a little bit. The gasket held really well, so. Alright, so now we're just going to remove these two like ID plates. It's just a bolt right there. Probably can't see it because of the mud, but it's there. So just zip that out. So we removed this, the tags here, and I had a retaining clip to hold this down. So now what we're gonna do, so we're gonna hammer it out hammer on this to push the intermediate shaft out this way. The video I'm watching says use like a brass hammer or like a brass hammer thing, so you don't damage this. But in our case, with my transfer case rebuild kit, I have a brand new shaft for that, so I don't really have to worry about damaging it, but I'm still going to be kind of gentle. Alright, it's on its way out. It needs some love, but nothing a 5-pound hammer can't provide, so let's watch stuff. Oh. So nothing really fell. It just kind of went down. Okay. That wasn't too scary. Don't forget to pick up that little retaining clip that came off too. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out our idler or intermediate gear. Alright, so see all these little bearings? They're going to fall out, but don't worry. In your rebuild kit, there's going to be new ones. So all you got to do, put your finger in each side, lift it up. Might need some love because it is like perfectly gear meshed. So yeah, we're going to yank that out right now. Alright, for reference, you're going to have this side's front, this side's back. You're going to have like this thing with like a key on it, it's metal. Then you're going to have a little shim thing. You're going to have bearings in between that. You're going to have the thicker shim. You're going to have another set of bearings. Then you're going to have the thinner one, and then you have the final metal piece that goes right up against here. That's more for me than for anyone else, but yeah, and as you can see, all those little bearing things just fell to the bottom. But yeah, making some progress. I don't know if we replace these or not, but it's good to keep them. Alright, so the next thing you gotta do is take out or loosen these two Allen keys. You got one there, and you have one there. And those connect to our shifter linkage here and here. So what you gotta do is you gotta loosen that until you can slide that shifter up and down on the shaft. I'll show you that. The first thing we're gonna do is loosen that Allen. Alright, I got them out. As you can see, you got play here, and you got play here. So that means it's loose enough to be able to slide. So now that that's accomplished, what we got to do is we got to zip off these bolts here just on this outer case, and what we can do is remove the entire case with the shifter forks in it too, so these bars can slide out. And apparently there's some sort of like balls or something that are connected to the shifter fork that are like there. You have to be careful of. I don't know. I'll have to see it. I'll tell you if there's any real danger of those falling out. But yeah. Alright, so here it is, out. So as you can see, that part kind of just slides out. And one of the problems with pulling it out is you got to make sure this stays back. Because what can happen is it can get at an angle and it just like, the leverage, you can't get it out. So you got to make sure it's pulled out. I had to take both of those set screws completely out. I'm sure you didn't have to. That was just so I knew for a fact they were completely out. So yeah, that's it for this. We're not going to take these shifter forks out yet. Alright, so now we're going to pull off these 4 bolts here. And then you're going to have to be sure there's going to be some shims in here that you're going to have to keep. And then also like a bearing thing. I'll show you everything out here once I get it off. Alright, so hopefully this stuff looks familiar. We got these are the shims I was talking about. They're on this plate. There's that plate. There's this bearing thing that's inside of here, like this. So you just pull that out. And then you got both your shifter forks. So I think the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna have to pull one of these bearings. Alright, so we're at the point where I'm gonna have to do some tool shopping. I need a puller for this, and I also need to find a friend who owns a press. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today. Next time you see it, we'll be hopefully have a puller on that. Alright, so for reference, we got this bearing, gear, and then this. So the next thing we got to do, or actually now for this part, you're going to have to put it in the press to get it off. So now we're going to move on to this. Alright, now we're going to take out these 6 3/16 Allens for the input shaft. Okay, so this is seized in there. We can't get it out. So we're going to try to come from this way. So the first thing we're going to do is take out the speed sensor thing.
Okay, so now we've got 5 bolts on this piece.
Alright, so on this right here, there's going to be some shims. Make sure you hang on to them because it's going to help you set your preload and stuff. Alright, so there's a pry point right there. So use that.
And there's also one on this side too.
Oh, dang. Alright, so here it is. Just came out. Needed a lot of prying, but we got it. So I think the rest of this stuff needs the press to come off. Alright, so we never trust anything before, but we're going to do it now. And hopefully not break anything. Alright, that's it. Alright, so for reference, we got this shaft, the gear, that goes on it like this, and then we got our bearing.
Okay, so we have the gear, or the output, then this gear, then we have a little washer shim thing, and then the bearing.
Alright, so now we're moving on to all the stuff that's not inside the transfer case, like all the little gear assemblies and stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is press the bearing and the seal out of this. So the next thing we got to do is tap out these bearing race right here, or whatever they're called. I don't think it's called a race or a raise or something. I don't know. We got to tap them out. You just use a hammer and a punch, and you go around and tap them out. Alright, so we got the raises out. So we just had to use some heat and a bigger hammer. That came out. So the next thing we're going to do is move on to the gears.
Okay, so we just use the snap ring pliers to just take this little snap ring off.
Alright, do as we say, not as we do. We took the snap ring off, but like in the video, we're watching the guy literally just lifted it up. So we're gonna give it a little bit of force. Off the rest of the way. But yeah, so if it doesn't come off, just give it some love. We need to pull it.
Okay, so we use the puller to get the gear off the rest of the way.
So documentation, we got gear here, snap ring in this divot. So that's all we've done. Now, what do we gotta do?
There's another snap ring inside of here. Like it's like one of the big ones with the split at the end. So we gotta get that out, and then should be able to take this all apart. Okay, so now we got this snap ring out. So now we just need to press this out. Okay, just so you know that we had a shim right here.
So yeah, don't forget about the shims, they're important. Alright, so now we're gonna move on to the other shaft. Alright, so now we got the seal here, and we're just gonna hammer it out with a screwdriver. So now time for the boring part. We're just gonna clean everything, and next time we're back, we'll be putting it back together. Alright, so we just cleaned everything up, and here's all our pieces for the front output shaft. So I'm gonna go through the order of everything that goes on. So we have our output shaft here. We're gonna have a bearing here, right? Okay, that's gonna go on there. And then you're gonna have this big gear with the selector side facing in. That's gonna go in like that. And then you're gonna have your selector, and that's gonna slide over like this. And then you're gonna have this gear with the selector gears facing in. And then you're gonna have another bearing that's the same one pressed on this side. These bearings are both the same, and they say M86649. Alright, so here's our transfer case, and the next thing we gotta do is we gotta get our bearing race, and we're gonna have to seat it into this. I might use a press, or I might use like a block of wood and a hammer. Not really sure yet, but yeah. We'll get that seated, and then we'll press our bearings on. Alright, so here it is, perfectly flush. All I had to do was tap it a couple times, and it perfectly slid into place. And then with all this final assembly stuff, don't like hit it directly with like metal, because like it's all machine surfaces. So if you like dent it or anything, so just like use a wood or like a brass punch, something like that. So yeah. Let's go over to the press now, and we will press the bearing on that goes in here. We're now in the press, and it's gonna be difficult to show you because, alright, I can't lift this gear with one hand, but take my word for it. We got the bearing in there, and then I have this, I don't know, block here supporting the race so it doesn't fall out. So now what I'm gonna do is I'll press it in. So that spins well. I think we're good. Alright, so I got my selector and my other gear all in the correct orientation. So now what we gotta do is we gotta press this gear onto that. So we need to press this on like this. So I got my, like a deep socket, and I'm just gonna put it on like that and press it. So you just wanna press it until this can spin and your gears can spin all fine. Alright, so now we just gotta start getting this thing ready to go in. The first thing I gotta do is I'm replacing the seals on this, so I gotta take this bolt out. Well, this kind of sucks because this is all dirty and I just cleaned everything. But now we gotta take these seals out because I got new ones. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna slide your seals on, and I'm using a 1-inch pipe to just kind of hit it in. So after I got the seals in, I went ahead and bolted up the retainer clip. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tap the seal in. Alright, so I got the seal in on this side. Now I'm going to use a block of wood in order to press or tap this in evenly. Alright, so here it is, seated flush. I needed the press. I mean, honestly, like, this went on so hard, like, I wouldn't even waste your time with hammering it. Just put it right in the press if you have one. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to replace these, like, feet that are on the shifter fork. You just take one off and put the new one back on. Alright, so now we're at the part that involves bolting stuff back up. So what you're going to do is you're going to reuse your factory shims, just because they're going to be the closest to like what you're going to need. Alright, so now add RT. Now we're putting this on. So first we got to kind of get it in. So I have a gasket, but it's cardboard, and I rather have like more sealing capability than less. Because, you know, I'd rather have more and not leak than have less and leak. So now we're gonna slide that in, and when we're putting it in, what we have to do is we have to get the shifter forks, like we have to put it through here when it goes in. I'll show you the correct configuration of them once it's in. All right, so I got this in, and I can't even spin this. So that means we have a shim issue. Looks like we're probably gonna have to take one out or just add in smaller ones. But the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to put in my Allen key right into that hole there, that way it's lined up. Alright, so I got this dial indicator at Harbor Freight, and like, it's not precise enough. So we're saying screw it. Like 200 thousandths is like not enough to be able to see with the eye, and it spins great, and it's got like, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's got like enough play to hear, but like not, you can't see movement. So I think we're pretty good. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the front yoke on, and we're gonna grease here, because last time when we put the yoke on, this got like really hard to spin. That might just be because of our new seal, but whatever. Okay, so this does not spin as easily as it did without this yoke on, but I think that's because the front seal is super tight up against this, and we even greased it, and like there's probably the same amount of play, like barely any at all, and I think that is attributed to how tight the seal is as well. So now we're just going to move on to the rear output shaft. Alright, so now we're on to our input shaft, and what we have to do is we got to install this bearing and make sure the input shaft's in there. So what we got to do is we got to slide the bearing on this way and get it onto here. And it might be easier, like I just got to get it on here kind of. So now we'll get it onto here. I'll probably put in the vise to hammer it in. Alright, so now we have the snap ring, and we're going to put it in just as we took it out. Alright, so the next thing we got to do is slide this gear on, and then right here we got to put our snap ring. You got to do the curved side down and then the sharp flat side up. Alright, here it is. You see the snap ring right here. Spins kind of well. This took some love to get it on there, so the video I'm watching it just slid on, but ours needs some more love, so don't be afraid to hit it with a bigger hammer. Alright, so now that we got this input shaft done, for reference we're going to have this selector, then we're going to have this with this bearing going in right here, then we're going to have the big gear with the selector facing down, then we're going to have this spacer, then we're going to have this larger bearing, then you're going to have shims for your bearing preload that are going to go on here, and then you're going to have your bearing. Alright, so now it's time to get the our shaft in here. So what we're doing is you got to move this selector all the way over so you can barely squeeze this gear in here. At first we kind of had and I did it the wrong way. But at first we kind of had a heart attack because we thought it wasn't going to fit and we had to undo what we did. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to slide in your shaft going this way. Through the case. Put it on. And then don't forget your spacer here. That's going to go on the back. And then you can also install your larger bearing. Alright, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to slide on your selector here. And then what we're going to do is, I can't really record this, but you're going to grease up this part that's going to go in the bearing. You're going to put RTV on here and on your bolts, and bolt this up. Alright, oh, so I got that in. Kind of a nightmare actually, like I had to get it so it would actually spin. Because like the first time I put it in, it was like kind of crooked or something, I don't know. But whatever, it's in and it spins. Now what we got to do is we got to put in that set screw right there. The good way to see to make sure if you're lined up is to take the screw out and see if you can see the indentation right in there. So yeah, now I'll pop that in. Alright, so this needs to be flush with here. The problem is it doesn't fit, so we'll take it over to our press. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we got the bearing right in here, and we're going to press it down. Yeah, so that definitely needs the press to get on there, but we're looking good now. Everything spins independently. So now, what we got to do is we got to put both bearing races and the seal in this. Alright, so now we're going to tap the race in. I cooled it so it would... He cooled it so it would shrink. Alright, so now what we're doing is we need to figure out our bearing preload. So we got both races in, and we're not going to install this seal like I already messed up and did. So what we're doing now is we're putting this in, and we're going to put our bolts in. So now we have to do bearing preload, and our old bearing like perfectly fits over. So we're going to use our old bearing until we get the shims correctly, and then we're going to go over to the new bearing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put on the stock shims, and then we're going to slide on our bearing, and then we're going to torque down the yoke to whatever the impact can torque it down to, and then we'll check end play. But right now we got way too much end play, so see how we go. Alright, so no play, hard to spin. That means we need to add some shims, so we're going to do that right now. Alright, so I think we're good here. We got like no resistance. Well, we have resistance from like the seal and stuff, but like we have, you can't even tell on camera, but we got enough play. Like it doesn't move, but there's an audible amount of play, which is just what we had on our other side, and I think that's good. So I think we're good. That took a really long time, kind of sucked, but it's good to go. Next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna throw some RTV on here. We're gonna put our non-grinded down bearing inside of here. We're gonna put the seal in, and then we're gonna torque it down. Alright, so we got the RTV. Gonna slide that in. Also, don't forget the bolts should get some RTV in there as well. Just because it goes right into the block, I'm gonna call it. So yeah, you don't want that. Alright, so now we got the tight bearing in there. So we gotta do now, so we gotta install our seal. With just a hammer. Oh, actually, it kind of goes in pretty easily because I already installed it before when I wasn't supposed to. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grease up the yoke here, and then put that in, torque it to spec. Alright, so now we just got to put on our speedometer gear, pretty easy. Just bolts in. Alright, so now we're moving on to the intermediate shaft. So the first thing we're going to do is put a bunch of grease on these washers right here. And then what you can do is put the spike side, or the indented side, in. That way it stays in. And the reason we're going to put grease on it is so it'll just hold in place like that. So now we'll do that to the directly other side. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in our needle bearings. So you're going to take this piece that you had before, and I greased up the center here, that way when I put them in, they don't fall out. Made some grease. So now what we'll do is we will just slide these into place like so until we have them all in. Like we have the correct amount. It's kind of cool how it all fits in there perfectly. If I can get this last one in there. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, and then what we'll do, you put your two end pieces on like that. Push it over until they're flush. So yeah, I think the next thing we're going to do is put them in the case. I'm just going to keep fiddling with this, and when I get it in, I will show the camera. Alright guys, we did it. So you can see there, it's lined up into place. This sucked. The best thing that helped was I fed this side in just enough to where it held it in place, and then this side I just held it up with prying a screwdriver, and then I ended up getting it down. I had to go back and forth a bunch of times. Basically, like, your situation's probably gonna be different no matter what, so you're just gonna have to mess with it. So yeah. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna slide this in, and then what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to make sure this slot is lined up with this hole right here, and you're gonna have to hammer this in to shear off the surface of this gasket thing. I'll show you that. Alright, sorry I couldn't record that whole process of going in. I'm kind of a one-man show, so can't, but it's in. Needed some hammering. When this went in, this sheared off, so that's good. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to spin, or I mean, it's not that bad. Like, some effort is required. Like, it's not like just like spinning. I don't know. I've never done anything like this before, so I guess we'll have to see how it does when it's in. That's all I can really say. So yeah, alright. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put that retainer clip on. Pretty easy. And I think that's it, other than this top piece. Alright, so the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna install this gasket and this cover. I'm just gonna bolt it up. Alright, so it's on. Spins pretty well. So I think the last thing we're gonna do is just paint it up real nice. As you can see, it cleaned up real nice. We painted it, we polished up these emblems here. So, for the rest of this Jeep video and weekly uploads, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.